Hey everyone, and welcome to Success IQ Podcast, the show for entrepreneurs who want to create and live an exceptional life. I'm your host, Jeff Nicholson, and this is episode 9. Hi everyone, and welcome to the show. Really glad for you to join me this week. Today we have a fantastic guest, the second third of the Mastermind. We've already heard back on, what show was it? I wonder what show it was that Simon appeared on. Simon was the first third, although I don't want to admit he was the first, on episode 5. We have got Dave Algeo. So I'm going to give you a brief description about Dave. Dave is a very good friend. I've known him for many years. He is a self-styled stressed guru, and as he says in his introduction, because he is human and still learning. He specializes in speaking, writing, providing tools, tips, and strategies to help individuals, managers, and teams to put stress back in its place and get on with life. After all, Dave believes that the only reason we should be interested in stress is because it gets in the way of what we want to be, how we want to live and feel, and ultimately what we want to achieve in life. He has just launched a daily video, The Daily Sprout, which we no doubt we'll get into further on into the show, which is a short hint. It's a short hint or tip to get more out of life and work whilst also nurturing our well-being. Why Sprout? Well, at his events, Dave has become renowned for using vegetables as props and metaphors for some of the critical questions we need to be asking ourselves when in the trenches of day-to-day life and working. So, Dave, I really want to say welcome to the show, mate. It's great to have you on.
Thanks, Jeff. That's brilliant to be here, and thank you. And looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait till you start explaining to the world, because we've got it, forward thinking. We're going to talk about vegetables and how you.
We are.
So,
I was just saying, I'm guessing that the majority of the audience will never have asked themselves at least one question I'm going to pose.
No, I'm pretty confident about that as well, my friend. So, yeah. So tell us a little bit more about how you got into this line of work.
Well, for the majority of my life, I've kind of wrestled with anxiety as a condition. Now, I had no idea that it was a condition, and I just thought it was me. And it wasn't until later in life that I realized that actually it was more, although it is a significant part of me, there's a lot that I can do about it controlling and managing me. I can start to manage it. And I learned techniques and tactics to do that. It took a long time to get the hang of it, but over life I kind of freed myself from anxiety. So that kind of has stirred that kind of interest in what is it about our human mind and our ability to survive and cope, and how can we get more out of the way we think and think more positively and deal with things that we can get stressed about, because we can get stressed about the little things through to the biggest of things. And what I've learned, and I guess a lot of listeners will probably relate to this, is that we can add a lot of stress inside our own heads. That was certainly my case, which is why the Stressed Guru is the title, because I can still fall foul of that from time to time. I still have this thing where I say, Dave, what you doing, man? You know this stuff. Still catch myself doing it. But the beauty now is I know that I do it, I catch myself doing it, and then I employ some tactics to change that mindset again. Whereas before, I was kind of trapped in a cycle of ignorance, really, and tormenting myself. So that's one of them. The other, I spent 22 years as a police officer, and in that role, kind of experienced both traumatic, chronic stress, but also the traumatic acute stress, but also the longer term chronic stress, and work with lots of people under that. And I've always been inspired by how people have a massive capacity to survive and get through. And it's tapping into that as a human being that I'm keen to do, because like I said, like you mentioned in the intro, stress is not the issue. It's something that gets in the way. I want to live a great life, have great fun, do great things, achieve big things. And it's often the little things, the stresses, the challenges that can overwhelm, that derail you from that. And that's what I'm interested in, getting us back on track so that we can achieve what we want to achieve and feel how we want to feel, basically.
Yeah, and it's I think that's the important thing as well, is it's acknowledging that everyone goes through it. I mean, I talked about stress and resilience back in episode 3, just sort of how it resonates with me, because that's really how you and I met, is because we had a very similar interest and passion about stuff. And it's this willingness to understand that we're human, so it affects us all, but in different ways. And it's looking at how do we manage that without being, it was World Mental Health Day yesterday, and we talk about that, and it's about having the courage to speak up and look at dealing with strategies. And I think that's an important thing, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Absolutely, and it's realizing. I think the likes of the World Mental Health Day and various promotions and efforts to make it more open are so important, because so many people feel as if they can't share, they can't be open, that they're on their own and they're the only one feeling this. Now, we all go through individual challenges and circumstances. Not to try and say, everybody's been through all of that. But it is to say that we are not alone, and there are often other people who are going through it or have gone through it and survived and have something they can share and support you with. And I think it's so important that we do open that up and talk about it more.
And do you find when you're dealing with, you as you said in your intro, you're dealing with individuals, managers and teams. Do you find that it's challenging for managers to pull out the actual, or find out about the issues that are going on within their teams and within their departments because people are frightened to speak about it? Or do you find that it's more like the teams are more nervous about going to the managers and the team leaders to speak about it because they're worried about what people may think?
I think it's a bit of everything, but it does depend on the culture within that organisation, and I guess the manager's style as well. I mean, we're not putting everything on the manager, but the good leaders, the good managers kind of intuitively take an interest in their staff, show that they care about them, and are open when somebody either comes to them or open when they see somebody not quite themselves that day. It's always going to be down to the individual as to whether they're going to be open. I mean, we can't twist people's arms. If somebody is insistent on just keeping it to themselves, then that's their right. But obviously, when I talk to individuals, it's encouraging them to be open when they're struggling, and also managers just to be alert and to have the sensitive, interested, caring questions that might prompt somebody to open up. And yet, you've got the bigger picture of a culture within organisations, and I guess that's why mental health awareness initiatives are really good at educating everybody. Top down, I guess.
Yeah, because I just came back from a company the other day, and we're sitting talking about how do we train the managers to be maybe more aware, to be very careful and not to make the managers think that they're coaches or therapists, but it's giving them the confidence to be able to go, I need to have that conversation with people, or I need to be able to be confident in asking the right questions in order to bring up those issues, because quite often it's at least what I found when I was speaking to this group is they're nervous about saying the wrong thing because they're worried that are they allowed to say it. They are worried about they don't have the skill sets, and who am I to speak to people about their personal issues. And it's making them understand that it's not about it's not about digging into their darkest secrets. It's about just going, okay, how can we best both benefit the company? Because obviously they've got to look at that, but also is how can we benefit the staff? Because I think it's key to understand that it is not the software, the great machinery that's going to make a success of your business. It is the people within the business. It is how we as entrepreneurs, how we manage our resilience and our stress to reach our optimum level of performance, so we can make our business and create that impact we're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I always remember when I used to run custody sergeant training courses. I was a custody sergeant for a lot of years in the police, and the key there is harm reduction, suicide reduction, harm minimization. And we used to talk to the custody sergeants. It's a very demanding role, but to try and encourage them and reinforce this thing that we're not trying to make them street corner psychologists. We're not trying to make them professional therapists, and they don't need to be. And it's the same for managers and colleagues. You don't need to be. What you need to be is aware and observant and listen, so that if you ask a question as an interested supervisor, how's things? Oh, how you doing? How's things? You're not just saying that automatically. You are listening and you're looking for those little signs and those things that might just indicate to you something that is different to what they're telling you. Because often they'll tell, oh, I'm fine. But actually, are they? And sometimes you just need to be aware of that. And that's part and parcel, I guess, of good awareness training, is to make people aware of what those potential signs are and help them tune in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. You make a really good point. So let's get into the vegetables. So let's share with us your, because it is a really unique way of looking at it, and I love it because it puts a very serious topic in a more light-hearted approach, which I think is really key, because quite often, it's a good way to get in and speak to people. So share with us some of your strategies,
right.
And how you bring. I mean, I've been with you on this journey to bring the vegetables in, and I laugh every single time we do it because I know what a great idea it is. So share with us some of your strategies and tips.
Yeah. Well, I suppose just to put it in context, the whole idea of it came from, I was doing some reading and research, and I was reading about being overloaded by stress, the demands of life and work and what have you. And I just had this image, and you have to be of a certain age from the UK to remember a children's program called Crackerjack. And on that program, there was a game called Cabbages and Kings. And that I had this image of the kids that used to stand on the stage getting asked questions, and they get a prize. And if they got it wrong, they get a cabbage. And the winner was this kid with a massive pile of toys and cabbages, desperately trying not to drop anything, all for a Crackerjack pencil, basically.
They were game shows, weren't they?
Oh, that was the way it was done back then. But that image, I then tried it out at a breakout conference event, and it went down such a storm when I brought two people out. I now use it with one person to sort of illustrate the good demands of the toys, the cuddly toys, the things we enjoy and get out of bed for, exercise, activity, having a fun time, socializing with friends. They're the positives. But then we chuck on the negatives, which are the cabbages, and they can pile up. And what happens is you end up carrying around this stuff, and all you're trying to do is carry it. But what you do is you end up putting the cuddly toys down in order to cope with the negatives. And that's often how we get the balance skewed, because we put down the stuff that actually does us good in order to cope with the difficult things. And that's natural. But then what over the years, as you know, I've kind of developed that. Initially, I thought that's a useful visual, but I've since taken the metaphor a bit further. And I now talk about how do you deal with the cabbages. And I talk about chunking your cabbages down to sprouts. So you're breaking a cabbage, a problem, into chunks, and talk about the power of chunking. And then I talk about a bigger picture, a bigger question, which is really part of my whole sessions and part of it's the key message of everything I do. And it's the question, are you sweating the right sprouts? Now, that question, I'm sure nobody's asked themselves unless you've been to one of my sessions. And you probably think, what? What are you on about? But the point is here, what I try to get across is all life is a bunch of sprouts. All life is a series of moments, moment to moment, things we're doing now, things we're going to do, things we have done. It's all about the sprouts. And often what we're doing in life is sweating the wrong sprouts. We're sweating the sprouts that are either distractions, or we're worrying about things that are trivial instead of the big challenges. And that question, at any given moment, am I sweating the right sprouts here? It works in work, rest, and play. Because you know as well as me, Jeff, that in work we can get distracted and lose focus. That's when we're sweating the wrong sprouts. We're delving into email at the wrong times, or we're multitasking. In rest, we can be sweating the wrong sprouts when we're resting, but we're not really relaxing. We're on Facebooks and social media. I'm not knocking them, but there's a time to just unplug. And then there's play, or outside of life. And how often is it that we're my son Thomas, when he was a little lad, used to say, "Dad, do you fancy going knocking a baseball around and what have you?" I'd go out and do it, but in my head would be dwelling on other things. Now at that moment I was sweating the wrong sprouts. I was sweating the work, the problem sprouts, instead of just enjoying the moment. The right sprouts at that time was the sprouts with my child, knocking a ball around and having those moments. So that question is kind of the underpinning question to all of the tactics I talk about. There's lots of others, but it's that question of, given time, are you sweating the right sprouts? Because that's what life is. We are sweating sprouts at any time.
Yeah, and it's amazing because I've lost count how many conversations I've had with clients or even people I've met at speaking events or workshops where they talk about how they feel disconnected from their families, or they've spent so much time trying to get business off the ground, or to get the success within their business. And as you know yourself, as an entrepreneur, it's a challenging balancing act. It's that as a parent like yourself, is the last thing you want is to feel that you're neglecting the people that you care most for, and the probably the main reason why you are running a business in the first place is to make sure that life is good for everyone, and you can put it in priorities. And whether it's looking at dinner time's an interesting one, because you see more and more people, and I hear more and more people about how kids come to the table with their smartphones rather than sitting down and engaging. I mean, remember when you used to have a sort of sit down and it was like, well, what's your day been like? And rather than them sitting with their nose in Facebook or nose in YouTube, it's about engaging and going, okay, well, let's talk about it. And I think it's this ability. And I love, one of the things I love about it is the way you talk about chunking down. And there is no better. There's two demonstrations that I've seen you do. One of them is that, the cuddly toys and the cabbages, because it is, I mean, I've done it with you as a demo, and it is unbelievable how heavy those, I'm pretty sure you put lead in the sprouts in the cabbages I had.
Especially picked cabbages.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a great visual. And for those people who are doing the demonstration, a physical representation of, you can't do this forever. And it's understanding that you sometimes something's going to drop. And and it's your balance of understanding that stress is always there, but it's make sure you're prioritizing the things right in that. And then the other thing I love is your demonstration of chunking down.
Yeah.
Because of the way you can look, well, here's the cabbage, and then let's break it down into the sprouts. And as you say, it's looking at those ones and going, well, which one is the most important? That's so critical in helping people identify where is it they're wanting to go.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is so key as well for those in business, entrepreneurs and what have you, because you do have a strong why. Why am I doing this business? And often it's to make a better life for you and your loved ones. And that's the cuddly toys bit. But ironically, when we get into the thick of it, because business is not easy, is it? You get into the thick of it, you often end up putting down the cuddly toys, the why, your why, in favor of making this business succeed. And you have to do that from time to time, but it's how long do you put them down for? And sometimes you can come back to it and the relationships aren't as good as they were, or you're burnt out, and it's an ongoing balance, which is why it's useful to have tools and tactics and questions like, are you sweating the right sprouts in the kit? Because at a given time, it is about just saying, right, enough for today. Draw a line, let's go and have some downtime with my family. Let's turn the TV off, or let's do this, that, and the other. Because one of the things we often, I think, by getting out of balance, we then add more pressure because guilt comes in, doesn't it? And we get even more out of balance, and that's what throws us off completely. And it's a real, I don't know, it can be really difficult. But one of the things I like to talk about is, don't think cabbage size time is what's needed. You need sprout size quality time. You need, if you want to spend some quality time with your family, you don't need to write off a whole day. That would be lovely. But 10 minutes of face-to-face contact without distraction, or an hour, or, smaller chunks is what counts. It is quality, not quantity, in everything. And that's the same in work, as you know. We've kind of discussed, my current plan is, because I've got a Rosie who's a year old now, she's come along and made me rethink my business and develop a lifestyle. So I've reduced to a 3-day week. Now, the other 2 days I'm spending time with Rosie and meeting family and friends. But in those 3 days, I've had to kind of practice what I preach and realize that productivity isn't about throw time at it. Just like business success isn't about throw money at it. That helps, but actually it's about what you do with your time, how you prioritize and how you maximize it. And I've kind of learned to put into action the cabbages and the sprouts in those 3 days, and it really does work. It's about focus, and focus is draining, so you do need time out of that. But my productivity is rose because of that, and it's really important to recognize it's about quality in whatever we do, not necessarily quantity.
Yeah, and you bring out that good thing. Funny enough, the app I'm looking at the minute is a tomato, but we'll get into that. It's Pomodoro. You know,
the Pomodoro technique.
Why is it not pomegranate? But never mind, we digress. But we look at that, and that's working 25-minute blocks.
Yeah,
because there's this bizarre culture that we're still, and we've really got to learn that working your arse off continuously all day does not make you productive. It's how you use that time. And I mean, if we look at Sweden, I think they've just dropped down from an 8-hour to a 6-hour.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They've identified that you don't get any more done. And so, but yet we still have this ridiculous culture where I'm sure you've heard them in working in the same field, is they use working. I've worked until 9 o'clock last night, and they want it as a badge of honor to say,
I've used it myself.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know exactly. So have I, and it's like that's my badge of honor to say I'm working hard. Not actually, I've managed to complete this project, and I've done it in half the time, because it's like, I talk about lessons from a smoker. There's something that I learned when I was ill. And my experience, and it was when you sit at a desk and you watch people are working their butts off at work, and you can see the frustration into them. The non-smokers just sit there and they work, or they think they work because generally they're burning off their energy too fast. Quite often you don't see them go for breaks because they just force themselves to do it. Smokers, however, they get up. If they're annoyed, frustrated or something, you can see them take a deep breath, get huffed, and they go out and have a cigarette. They get up, they move, they change location, change perspective, take deep breaths, even though, all right, it's not really healthy, and then come back, and they've taken a break and they've got a different perspective.
Yeah.
They go and have their breaks, not necessarily because they want to go and have something to eat or go and get a drink. They want to go and have a cigarette, but they still remove themselves from that situation. Yeah. And it's like you say, when you're talking about the sprouts, and it's certainly part of the success IQ model, is it's having that foresight, that awareness, that mindfulness of understanding that just because you're sitting and quite literally sometimes you're flogging a dead horse, you're still if you're in the wrong mindset, if you think that just forcing yourself to concentrate is going to get the job done. You need to get up and move, which is counterintuitive, and then come back to it, and you probably will get the job done 10 times faster.
Yeah, and you may come back and realize that what you were working on wasn't the right thing, and actually you could do it easier, or you could do, or you could ask such and such to do it. There's a lot of ways around that, and I think you're right. And actually, the other thing about the smokers, albeit smoking itself's not great, is the social element, because you usually find 2 or 3 in an office will go off together. Now, there's a social connection there, and that's something else that I think particularly as entrepreneurs, we might network here and there, but if we're locked away, flogging away, we can become more isolated. And that's not great. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big believer that when you put the foot down, when you need to put the foot down, you put the foot down and you work. But you still have to have breaks. You still have to have connections. And after a period, say a day or 2 of hard work, you need to then think, right, how do I recharge my batteries now? What can I do to break? That's enough for now, because ultimately you are on a downward curve. If you just keep going, you're going to run out of fuel.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose if you think about it, and although we're going to talk about this in a later episode, that's one of the reasons Simon, yourself, and I did the Mastermind Group. Yeah. It wasn't only just for like-minded people who have great ambition to go, okay, this is what we want to do with our lives. It was also to sort of create that community of, granted, very small, but it was create that community of, look, we just need to get stuff off our chest. We just need to have a laugh. Yeah. But we also are serious as well. And I mean, I think you will probably agree with me. It's one of those things that we look forward to every month. Yeah. Is to have that mastermind meeting.
And I think there's a key bit to have fun, because one of the things I do talk about is the importance of, there's a great quote, Tim Ferriss, I think, came up with a quote, or at least he re-quoted it, but it's, to get serious work done, you need to stop being so damn serious. And I think that's the key. When you have a laugh, you kind of release a bit of that stress and pressure, which frees you up. And actually, when you have a laugh, you tap into that fun, silly side of you. That's often where the creativity is. The change of perspective. Humor is brilliant for shifting your mindset and your perspective. There's so many things, as well as the connection. So for me, having a laugh and just getting silly and taking time out, wherever that is, within work, but also outside as well, is so important. And it was something that part of the anxiety and back in the day robbed me of, although I didn't realise it. I was far too serious, and I think that's part of it. If you find you're not smiling, I mean, don't get me wrong, so it's not everybody's nature to be really exuberant and bouncy and outgoing, but I'm pretty introvert. But even so, I still feel as if I smile a lot more. I'm a lot lighter and a lot brighter in my approach and body language than I ever was.
Yeah, and actually, it was you saying that, and I'm not gonna bring up or share the link or anything, but it was your fun bit within the business size was the thing that said, I really want to meet this guy. And we know the video we're talking about, don't we, David?
Yeah.
But
we have to be open about it. It was the parody on Salt and Pepper's song "Let's Talk About Sex," whereas I changed the words to "Let's Talk About Stress, Baby." And it's to be fair, I sometimes cringe at it, but it was a bit of fun. And actually, the whole point of that was that let's talk about stress, because we often don't, or if we do it in the wrong way. So it's a tongue-in-cheek thing. And
but it was that fun bit, wasn't it? Well, no, you won't. And with friends like Simon and I, you can guarantee that. But it was also the thing that I think I looked at it. It was, I loved the fact that someone's looked at it in a more light-hearted way.
Yeah.
Because I was coming from working with people who were, off ill for 12 plus years, and they were contemplating suicide, and they were doing all of this stuff, and it was. You can't. I always remember being ill, and my mother-in-law, when it was like when you were at the doctor's or when you were going to someone, it's like you need to be more ill. I was like, what do you mean I need to be more ill? Well, you need to look ill. I was like, but I am ill. It's just, but you don't look it. And it's that. Why do you have to be so? Why does everything have to be so serious? And I think it's a really good point. So brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing that. We're going to dive straight into the question times. So get yourself comfortable, because so basically what I do is I ask every guest to answer these questions, and the first question is how much time do you spend a month on self-development?
A fair bit, I would say. There's two sides. Learning skills to help me better at some of the tasks I do in the job is probably a couple of days a month, and then there's reading around that. I would say, hours. Outside, I'm a big reader. I listen to audiobooks when I drive, so lots of time, to be fair. And to be honest, it's a big part of it, because I think it's once you start that journey, you realise that there's so much more to learn and develop, and growing never stops.
No, and I think that's one of the reasons why I asked this question, is because I want people and the listeners to understand that it is consistently working on your skills or your knowledge or on yourself that's actually going to help you move in the right direction. Because quite often, when we leave school, it's like, I never want to learn again.
Yeah.
Or if we're in certain elements, we don't look at necessarily developing ourselves. We may want to learn to play the guitar or something like that, but it's work that we do ourselves that really is about making that, living that exceptional life and creating it, which is key. Brilliant, thank you very much. So the second question is, what is your favorite personal development book and why?
Ooh, right. This is a one that's difficult because there's a lot, but I'm going to give you the one that I always seem to come back to at least 2 or 3 times a year. And I've got it in book form, print, and audio, and it's the 4-Hour Work Week. And it's just one of those books that when I read it, it kind of opened me up to a different perspective on things. The whole point of the 4-Hour Work Week is, although the title can be a little bit misleading, it's about recognizing that, we're often working towards this so-called retirement, deferred life plan, as Tim Ferriss calls it. And actually, what about now? And it's about exactly kind of what I'm doing with the 3-day week idea is, when you're working, focus on it, be as effective, efficient, and productive as you can, but make sure you're working on the things that really matter and take you closer to the goals that you've already thought about in your life design.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, I have to come back to it every so often because life, you drift, don't you? You drift. And then when I listen to it on the audiobook in particular, I come back and think, yep, I've kind of slipped again. Come back and discipline yourself back into it, because the underlying principles that he talks about are so true. Difficult, but nothing you really, really want to achieve in life is going to be easy, but difficult to do. And that's why I keep coming back to it time and time again.
Yeah, I have to say, massive bucket list, but I would love to get him on the show in the next couple of seasons, because that would be cool. I mean, so that's definitely on the bucket list to get him on, because I love watching his videos as well on YouTube.
Yeah,
you know, he thinks on a very different level, and he's got this great gift of breaking things down to a more understandable level. I watched one about intelligent drugs. He was talking about one things that can improve your body's digestive speed and all sorts of stuff. It was really not recreational, I must add to that. It was all about sort of the science behind using the right drug to help you move and increase your performance and all sorts of stuff. It was really interesting. Okay, so question 3 is, what is your favorite app? Now, what I'm going to say is based on we've done a few shows now. If it is Evernote that you are about to say, pick something else, because I'm understanding that the more and more people are starting to use Evernote as a default. So if you have another app other than Evernote,
I use Evernote, but it wouldn't have been my answer anyway, because I kind of use that more a bucket. See, again, I'll use a lot of apps. I'm a Mac user, so I have my holy trinity of apps on Mac and iPhone, and they are Text Expander. Text Expander is one of those do you call it a program or an app? I'm not sure, but it's one of those that saves me bucket loads of time, because you can have little key phrases. So, XFE for me is a label I put on. I just put XFE, expands to financial expenses, business, bloody, and it means then that label is created in so much less time. Email templates and what have you, I just have in Text Expander. It's just a brilliant way to save lots of time for those stuff that you are regularly, repeatedly typing. And with that, because I'm a Mac user, I use Hazel, which is kind of it runs in the background, tidy up process, which it kind of watches your files and looks for keywords, key dates, files appearing here, there, and everywhere. And based on rules you set it'll file it away and put it somewhere else. And Text Expander and Hazel together must have saved me literally hours and hours of productivity, time.
Yeah,
definitely good.
Yeah, because I've got Text Expander and I'm still trying to get used to it. Hazel, I think, is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, even for something like helping you clean up your desktop, you can. I have a set of folders ranging from blog, misc folders, videos, and everything, and I just drag the files in there, and it will automatically send them to the images file, the PDF. It's just, and I've also invested in Alfred. I think I read something that Alfred and Hazel work quite well together. But it's, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so question number 4 is, what has been your biggest business mistake, and what did it teach you?
Right. Oh, there's been a few.
There generally has.
If I go to the one that was the key one, it set me on the path of working in stress and resilience and achieving goals by looking after your well-being, and also taught me the absolute importance of anticipating problems more realistically and not living in a bit of a fantasy land with business. I kind of, when I started business, I was a police officer. I was working in the training department. I had no idea to run a business, no idea about sales, but I had this image of an entrepreneur being a risk taker and somebody who would go out and build your wings on the way down type thing. You jump off and build your wings. Now that's great advice, because it's saying, don't be afraid, go and do it. But it's better to jump off the cliff with the materials to build the wings before you jump off.
Yes, I would agree. That's brilliant.
I jumped off and then hit the ground. And I remember when I took a career break. Thankfully, it was just a career break from the police, so I could return when things went badly wrong. Lots of other things went wrong, but financially, I had no sales, I had no clients, I had no network, I had no idea, and I ended up the worst, most stressful year of my life before I kind of thought, hang on a minute, you have to go back to work. There was a point where my house was about to be repossessed, and I had to ring Northern Rock, who no longer exists now. I had to ring them and say, how much do you need for me to pay in to not repossess my house? And she tapped away on her keyboard and said, £2. And it was £2 that I had to, I literally had to rummage around the back of the settee and find, because I was literally really, really bad. I scratched around, found £2, ran down to the Northern Rock in Chester Street, paid it across the counter, and bought myself another month. And at that time, that was when I wised up and thought, yeah, do you want to do this? You've got an option. You can give up and just go back to full-time policing. You can carry on the way you're going, which is just not realistic because you're just going to have financial ruin, or you can take the ground of, yes, I want to do this. How am I going to make sure this succeeds? And I decided at that point to get real, reevaluate, go back to work part-time in the police, and then reshape my business, focusing on some of the key lessons I'd learned and people told me, which was to focus on your niche, focus on an area you love and you're passionate about, and build a strong foundation of networks, sales, all of those kinds of things. And that was one of the biggest lessons. And whilst it was horrible at the time, I'm pleased it happened, because that feeling comes back to me now sometimes when I realise I'm taking my eye off the ball.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to it.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so the next question is what are your challenges in balancing work and life?
Mindset, because Rosie's come along. She's gorgeous, and I'm loving spending time with her. I've generally working this 3-day week, structured around working Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, but inevitably you do stuff outside of that. You answer emails here, you're taking calls. That's fine. But it's been the mindset, the busy mindset, the habit of working that I've had to challenge, because it's obviously so important to me and who I am, I think, that when I'm taking time out, I'm feeling guilty, I'm distracted, I'm finding myself thinking about work and what have you. And it's about breaking that habit as much as anything. I think I've got the rough structure now in place, and I'm starting to challenge the mindsets, because when I focus on work at work, when I focus on rest at rest and play at play, I'm more productive, I'm happier, and what have you. It's when they all blur together that's a problem. So that's the mindsets that I'm challenging at the moment, and I'm getting there.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so the question number 6 is, what advice would you give an entrepreneur that you wish you had known when starting out? Be aware that it will take longer, and it'll take a lot more time, a lot more work, probably a little bit more money than you think, to achieve what you want to achieve. And going in with a realistic approach will mean that when you hit those setbacks, you are less likely to be defeated and give up, because I guess we've all seen people who start in businesses full of enthusiasm, full of promises, full of promise for the first 6 months, and then they kind of drift away and you never see them again. And it's because it's a tough life, and make no bones about it, it's tough. But that doesn't mean to say it's not worth doing. That doesn't mean to say don't do it. It just means go in with your eyes open, because it's a fantastic life. You meet some brilliant people. You have an awesome kind of opportunity to grow yourself personally, to develop a lifestyle you want. You've just got to be prepared to take the knockdowns that inevitably come. Yeah, no, that's brilliant advice. Okay, so the final question 7, is the life lesson question. And what I do is I ask a guest to pick a number between 1 and 50, and we pick a lesson that I have learned over the last 10 years to share what they think, what came up for them if they have learned that life lesson. It doesn't have to be something you agree with. It's just something that I am intrigued to ask people. So pick a number between 1 and 50, Dave.
46, me age.
46. Ooh, enjoy the simple things. So basically, this comes from the fact is that you've got, I think from my experience of being ill and recovering and everything else, I kind of like looked at it and go, we sometimes set the bar so high and we forget to celebrate the simple things. And it really stemmed from when I was starting to get better. Even if it was a matter of just enjoying the air, the wind on your skin or the heat on your body, or the fact that you could actually get up and enjoy a cup of coffee in the morning was something to be cherished and really celebrated, because I think there's an importance of when the chips are down and your back's against the wall and stuff is going on, which in a real world, in the world of entrepreneurship and life in general, sometimes that is going to happen. It is to remember that there is other things that you can enjoy and experience. And I wonder what you think about that.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's the thing that I didn't do in my younger days. It's the thing that I think so many of us forget to do when we're under the stress and pressure of demands. And it's where the real joy is. And you reminded me of a little thing that when I was in the police, I used to finish night shifts, and there was just something when I got into bed after a night shift, I used to have a little chuckle to myself, because I used to love the thought that I've just done a night shift, I'm getting into bed to have a sleep, and everybody else is getting up. And for me, that was one of those little things that made me think, you know what, this is lovely. Yes, night shifts are tough, all of those things, but it's the little moments like that that I still remember and think back to and think, yeah, that's what counts. You see a little smile from your daughter, or your son achieves this, whatever it is, you've got to be present to them.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing is by doing that, it brings you more to the present rather than this pursuit and this fear of because an awful lot of deadlines we put on ourselves, especially in the world of entrepreneurship, the pressure that we're putting on ourselves and only us, not someone else. And it's to appreciate that actually, do you know what? It was great the fact that I got to, I don't know, like you say, got a kiss from your kids, or you shared a moment and had a laugh about something, or even if it was just sit down. And one of the things I love to do is, and much to my own ears and no one else's, I love to sing. Yeah. So it's, and I remember being at yours a couple of months ago, you just sat down and started playing the guitar, and it was so cool just to see, and you beamed when you did that. And even if you didn't know that you were doing that, it was something that I could see. And it's just that lovely thing just to go, it's lovely that you appreciate that.
Yeah. And that's the sweating of the sprouts, because the only sprout that matters is the one right here, right now in front of you. And it's that smile from your child. It's that smile from a stranger. It's an interaction that's gone positive. It's a bittersweet experience sometimes, because let's be right, painful emotions, they're in that moment as well. And the fact is we can experience them. That's something to be appreciative of.
Yeah, absolutely. I talk about mindfulness, sort of mindset and attitudes in episode 2, where we're talking about, the important things to understand, and mindfulness is, nearly at the top. Yeah. Because it's that being aware and to understand what mindfulness is. So, so brilliant, Dave. Thanks very much for being on the show. Just give you a little moment to share how people can find out more about you. I'll put the show, all the links and stuff in the show notes. But it's been an absolute privilege to have you on the show, my friend.
Thanks, mate. I've really enjoyed it, and thank you for the conversation as much as anything. I always enjoy them, and the opportunity to share with your listeners. I guess. As you know, I speak and I do workshops and I write around the subject of stress resilience and getting more out of life. But I've also just launched the Daily Sprout, which is it's just my daily video, 30 to 45 seconds. It's a reflection, a tip, a hint, a quote that I might comment on, a bit tongue-in-cheek from time to time, but some serious points there as well. But I'm sort of posting them on my YouTube channel, Stressed Guru, on my blog, which is www.stressedguru.com/blog. And also, you've got an opportunity to sign up for that. I'll obviously give you the link. And if anybody's interested in just getting a bit more, I'll give you the link as well, Jeff, to my free emergency stress CPR book. And anybody who signs up that can get a free complimentary copy of my Book of Calm, e-book of Calm, which is just an A to Z pictorial kind of daily reflection of things to think about to introduce a bit more calm and tranquility into your day, because life is mad and we forget to build that back in when we get chance.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Dave, and I'll make sure everything goes on the show notes. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask me, or perhaps you've got topics that you would like me to cover in the show, please send your emails to podcast@jeffnicholson.co.uk. The email address is in the show notes. Please take a moment to review, share, make comments, get more people to know about the show, because it helps me follow my passion and my purpose, which is to help you guys and people like you to live an exceptional life. If you'd like to find more about my links, you can visit my website, which is www.jeffnicholson.co.uk. It's been an absolute privilege to have a guest like Dave on the show today, and I look forward to speaking to you next week. Have an amazing day. Wishing you the greatest success. Take care.